talking about myself always wanting to be with him, to get close to sounding like him and all of those things. I once played a party, and this is when Michael was not well, when he was, dealing with some of the issues that he dealt with in life. I don't mean health at the end, but with, some of the addictive stuff, and I knew about all of that, what he was going through. And I was playing a party to a bunch of very fancy people. And I see Mr. and Mrs. Brecker, who I knew well, dancing. And again, here I was, and I said, oh, damn. I'm like shamed, here I am, 3 years older than Michael, and, playing a party for, and Mrs. Brecker was waving to me. I was on the stage, and she came up to the stage and said, when you're done, you can come over and say hello to Leonard and me. So of course I did, and I told her how I felt, and she said, honey, I know you're married, Michael. I know you have a couple of children, and I want to tell you, I am very proud of you, and you don't feel intimidated at all. And I'll tell you that Michael is very proud of you. And even that, that kind of stuff that surrounded, and he didn't know exactly what was going on in my life at that time. Mike was too busy and doing his own thing at every minute. But what she was saying was, even maybe why Michael was Michael, because of the way his mother was. Maybe he said such a beautiful thing, knowing that I honored her son and loved everything about him and his ability, So that was a great experience. I saw him at Carnegie Hall when he did that Naima solo, I think for the first time alone. He had done, well, here in our country anyway, I think he had done it with Directions in Music Project in Toronto prior to that. But anyway, I went to see him that day, and he, again, 12-minute saxophone solo alone. And he had invited me into the dressing room after. I was with a couple other guys, but I went alone. And I told him, Michael, it was just the most gorgeous thing I think I've ever heard. And he said, oh, I didn't like, nah, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel well. And I'm sad to say about this experience, this is in the very, very beginning of when he was not feeling real well. He said, my back hurts so much and my arms are hurting. He said, I don't know what the hell is going on, but I just don't feel good. I don't feel right. And he, not feeling right. And, I said to him, again there, I wish I didn't feel right and could play like that, So that was a beautiful thing. Another fun thing that we shared was when a saxophone repairman who Mike knew well too in Philadelphia by the name of George Sarkis. He was like the cat in Philly in those days. My dad was a saxophone player, so I used to go into this guy's place when I was a baby, a little boy with my father. And in fact, I grew up calling him Uncle George. And he was a man that would call me as I was growing up, Mike, hey, Mike, I got Cannonball's horn today to check out for him. He's playing over at Pep's. If you want to come in, at least you can take a look at his horn, and those kind of things. So when this man closed his place, it was a shoebox of a little place he had near the Musicians Union, but everybody went to him. He was the guy in Center City, Philly. So if the guys were playing at Pep's or the Showboat. So when he retired to his home to continue doing what he was doing, but closed the shop in Center City, he called me and he said, I have some mouthpieces for you, knowing I liked old Otto Links and all that. Well, the man gave me, you'll love this story, 18 metal mouthpieces that he found in his drawers. And nobody could ever find anything in his store, by the way. No one. Things were buried under stacks of instrument cases and dirty old this and dirty old that. He knew where everything was. So I took those 18 mouthpieces without trying one of them. I called Michael and Bob Malik. You know the name.
I know Bob.
Bobby's a dear friend of mine too. And I said, let's meet. We met, and I went like this: one for you, one for me, one for you, one for you, one. So we got a couple links, a couple of Wolftain, a couple of this, a couple of that, whatever they were. And we each got a couple of good mouthpieces, one of which I am playing at this time, which you listened to me playing on the other day, you know. And of course, you know, that I guess, you know, even made us feel better about each other. But they're the kind of things that would happen, you know. Yeah. So, I guess my most of my experiences were, you know, that I just went to hear him play so many times and watched him with all of his drive to just want to do more and more and more. And I don't think, by the way, I don't think I ever went into a place, no matter how crowded it was, and even many nights, you know, while he was married and his wife was in the audience, Susan, that he wouldn't come over and make sure that he said hello and put his arm around me.